We do all kinds of things here at Word in Your Ear.
Video casts like this.
Podcasts like this.
Crowdcast events with famous authors.
Live quizzes.
And we can guarantee to make your next birthday one you'll never forget.
There's only one way to guarantee getting all of this, to getting it before anybody else, and that's to sign on to be a supporter on Patreon.
Full details at this address.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a view.
Another episode of Word in Your Attic, and this is a little bit exciting because we're being joined here by the former creative director of Apple Records and one of the most prolific and creative designers of album sleeves of our time, the supremely legendary Kosh. Kosh, welcome. Lovely to have you. So you're in, I think you're in Hollywood, aren't you? Is that where we're finding you?
I thank you for the preamble. It sounds like I wrote it myself. Yeah, slap bang in the center of Hollywood. Yeah. What do you want to know? I'm ready to go.
Well, how's life? How is life out there?
We're sunny California is really kind of cool. And now after the election, everyone's like really in good shape. So
yeah.
Oh my God, what a harrowing time that was. My word. So anyway, so life seems to be taking on a sort of much brighter aspect now. So.
How long have you been out there, Kosh?
I came over in autumn of '73.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, I was visiting from New York. It was freezing. Actually, it was winter of '73, and it was a blizzard blowing. And I came over here just to have a look at the coast. And I thought, I'm going to stay here. Yeah. People are wearing flip flops, So I sold up at home in London and came here.
Right.
Yeah. How did you get from? Because you were originally a designer a magazine designer, weren't you? And you got into album sleeve designing around the time of, I think, through the connection with Apple Records. How did that come about then?
Well, it's a kind of weird story because I was actually working. I was working as a sort of slave at the British Printing Corporation in the art department, and I got fired, and they took the Royal Opera with me because I was working on their magazines and I was designing their magazine, and then got into designing Art and Artist magazine and found myself, actually getting involved in the art world, the avant-garde. In those days, it was like, the British pop art scene was, burgeoning. And we sort of were doing that for a while, and that led me to John and Yoko, 23 or something, or 22, and that's how I sort of found myself working at Apple Records, just because John, said, we did the War is Over campaign, which went well, around the world. And I started working on his diary and all the different bits and pieces, and I found myself, finding a desk at Apple.
The early ones presumably was Abbey Road, was it? Abbey Road itself, which you art directed that cover.
In case anybody doesn't know which record we're talking about.
I've got that one too.
Because to be fair, everybody's got at home a lot of Kosh's work, surely.
They have.
The shiny one.
That's
Look,
great, particularly shiny one. But it was your decision, I think I'm right in saying, to not put the name of the group on the front of the record and to not put the name of the album on the record, which caused a lot of control at the time, didn't it?
It was, because I got the phone call at 2:00 in the morning from Sir Joseph Lockwood, who was the chairman of EMI, which was the parent company that owned Apple. And he was livid, and he has an incredibly posh accent. And so when he started sort of really swearing at me, it was sort of really hit home, to have that accent and the foul language. So I was kind of devastated being, young and didn't sleep much that night, if at all. So I sort of went back to Apple in the morning with my, tail between my legs, thinking what on earth's going to happen to me. And George was, it's very unusual for a Beatle to show up before noon. George was there. I said to George, I told him what had happened. And he just sort of looked at me and said, screw it, we're the Beatles. I thought, my God. And so the whole thing went away because Sir Joe, as John used to call him, sort of more or less told me that I'd ruined the whole album. They're not going to sell a light. And in fact, they did like 26 million in 2 weeks or something. So I was exonerated that sort of decision. But if you don't know who the Fab Four, if you don't know who they are, where have you been for the last, decade?
Precisely. Although I can see it would have been a tense moment for the commercially. But you were proved right. Fantastic.
Yeah. seeing as we're sort of talking about coming across the world, there is Atlantic Crossing. Can you see it?
Right.
Because I got a little glare. Yeah. Rod decided that he was coming to the States. In fact, my clientele were coming over in droves. They were all escaping the tax man, I think.
Yeah.
And so Rod had come over and I had come over, and he just said to me, well, you know, we both came over, do an album cover, you know, and that's how that sort of transpired. And I think I can open it because it is a gatefold. I'm probably a little too near the camera, but I don't know how that looks.
Oh, right. Yes. It was never a gatefold in the UK, I don't think.
Yes, it was.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, go on, show me the middle of it. Go on.
Okay. You didn't get a gatefold in?
Well, I've got it. Maybe my memory's playing tricks.
Why don't I remember that? I don't remember that.
See, that was the whole
But was the story that it was all done overnight? Is that right? That the guy who originally was commissioned to do the artwork just didn't deliver, and you had to get. Was it a guy called Peter Lloyd who did that? Am I right?
Was it Pete? No, I don't think it was. I think Bob Hickson did this actually.
It was a Scottish guy, wasn't it?
Oh, right.
No, it was someone done over here. Bob Hickson was the. I don't have the inner sleeve with the credits on it. Damn it! Can you find them? It's 45 years ago, for Christ's sake.
So I've got the UK one, where that's on the inner bag.
I never seen it.
And let's see.
It is Peter Lloyd. Okay, we have.
It was Peter Lloyd.
Yeah, you have information. Yeah.
But it was done overnight, wasn't it? Because Peter Lloyd was just commissioned. Something had gone wrong. Am I getting this completely wrong?
Well,
he did it in just 24 hours or whatever.
I do remember a lot of substances being used. Put it that way.
Right. I've got to ask you about this one, which is a personal favourite of mine, which is Who's Next? Which still, when I look at that, I think that is just an astonishing cover.
Well, you did for one thing. I look at it with a very bad retouching job I did on the horizon. It looks like I did it with a toothbrush.
Well, don't worry. We're not looking at that. Tell us the story of how that came to be.
I can tell you one thing, that one of those stains on the obelisk is not real. That's a cup full of water.
Yeah, that's what they always said. They were too cold, weren't they?
Well, it was a lot of, I don't know, but you couldn't find it. It was very. There was a drinking ban. Don't forget that. So there was a lot of pit stops on the way. I think I was ahead of this picture. I was going to Mooney's house because I was doing a project with Keith Moon. So I wasn't actually present at that shot. But Ethan Russell, who took it, was behind me, stopped, shot the picture. And it wasn't until we were going through all the pictures that we suddenly thought, well, the title is Who's Next? It's obviously going to work, you know. And so I changed the sky because it was this grey, you know. And the whole point of it was like 2001 had just come out, and Kubrick's, you know, The Obelisk and all that.
Oh, The Obelisk, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so it was all sort of very sort of, it seemed to sort of come together serendipitously. I mean, I must admit that there was no planning in this. You know, most of our covers are very meticulously planned. I mean, I know you threw out McGinnis Flint a little earlier, but that, you can imagine what the work that went into that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Shot, you know. So anyway, that's the story behind that. And it came together, and I've been in trouble with that. When I first came to the States, they thought this was obscene, and I got thrown out of it. I think Casablanca Records threw me out when they showed my portfolio. Because they thought, I mean, really.
Was the back, the picture of them on the back, which I think was that taken to Leicester de Montfort Hall or something like that. Was that supposed to be the original cover, or?
Yeah, that was going to be, that was planned, yeah. But obviously, this, you know, the front cover was so key that it was just, and then the band, it is, and you know, considering it's in my opinion, it's the best Who's album anyway.
It is.
In my
fantastic
opinion.
record.
And I think that's a fitting tribute to sort of, you know, it's like sort of the middle finger, isn't it? You know?
It's just absolutely amazing when you think about it. And, you know,
and holding it, man.
I've got to ask you about another one, actually. Going back slightly before this, because this was a kind of revolutionary thing in its day. I mean, you've got that.
I told
one,
you.
right?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
It was also Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well,
that was the first one that I remember that was an odd shape.
yeah, because I was quite responsible for doing a lot of pop-ups and fold-outs and whatever else. It probably destroyed a few forests in my time, but they've been planted back again. Yeah, the reason for the octagonal shape is because on the inside you can see that picture, which obviously kind of dictated the shape of the package.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is not a good idea really, because it doesn't keep the dust out of the
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great session. It was done down the road from here, actually, in a sort of tram terminus turnaround place that was turned into a studio. Yeah, and of course Keith was late.
Get away.
3 hours late. But no, charming nonetheless, because he was, he was always charming.
If you're 3 hours late, you have to be charming, though, don't you? Really?
Yes, you do. You have to sort of come in with a certain amount of grace. Yeah. Which he swept in. He's a nice man. Anyway, so the plate glass was set up. We knew we were going to smash the glass. So I think it probably was a good 4 or 5 hour session.
Right.
Get to work. It was more than one sheet of plate glass, put it that way, to smash just in case. So.
And am I right in thinking that presumably between the design being finished and it coming out, Brian Jones died?
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
And so therefore the little kind of poem was added quite late in the day, presumably.
Yeah, and the point is that you can hardly read it. So
yes,
I didn't put it in. So the typography now is a little bit, when you get to my age, it's like that.
Yeah. Can I ask about another one, Mark? Sorry, I've got a few old ones here. This one.
All right, go for it.
Yeah. I love that record because the point is, surely it's based on Visions of Johanna, isn't it? Jewels and binoculars hang from the head of a mule. Is that right?
I think that was probably added.
Well, go on. It's a strange story behind that, because there's another serendipitous piece, because the original cover was in fact Mick's Uncle Sam hat, striped hat,
which
he used to wear on stage. And I had a hamburger on the top of it, because just about then London was going crazy over American hamburgers. It was the great American hamburger was in the King's Road and all that stuff. So because of his just going through the American tour, we put an American hamburger on the top, and it was ketchup coming out. And then the ultimate disaster took place, and I was actually in Ibiza at the time. I just thought, that's it, I'm going. And I delivered the cover, delivered everything. And I went off to Ibiza and came back, and the cover had changed. Mick had changed it. And there was Charlie on the donkey. And I thought, well, what? And Charlie didn't know, apparently, at the time. And David Bailey, who took the picture, didn't know and wasn't very pleased, because it's not exactly a typical David Bailey. And so, the ultimate disasters happened, and all of a sudden, ketchup looked like blood, and it was pulled. So the back is still mine.
Right.
And the border's still mine. The type is still mine. The sleeve inside with the lyrics, I think, can't remember, are still mine. But the cover's David Bailey, who was royally pissed.
Yeah, you're quite right. It's not a very typical David Bailey shot.
Right, no.
Not remotely. No, was always very controlled portraits, wasn't it?
And Charlie, I don't know if the one you got there, Charlie, is he wearing the T-shirt with the breasts on? Because that was airbrushed out after a while.
Oh, God, do you know? Yeah, he is. And that is the first time I've noticed, and I've had this record 50 years.
Yeah, well, about a couple of years afterwards, that was airbrushed out in America. I don't know about in the States. I don't know whether it happened in England.
That's absolutely astonishing.
It's a brilliant sleeve.
Yeah.
What else you got there?
Oh, I got.
Did you go Hotel California?
Yes, I did. Alex, I need some help.
I've got it here if he hasn't.
Oh, there, right. That's an interesting one.
I got Singer on the Stick.
Oh,
right.
That was actually designed as sort of a parody Elvis Presley.
Oh yes, 50,000.
Of course, can't be wrong.
Can't be wrong. Yeah, of course.
know you want to talk about this, right?
Oh, go on.
Well, 10,000 Maniacs.
Come
Which
to
one?
that.
Yeah, hang on.
Go on.
What are we talking?
Tell us about Hotel California, Kosh.
Oh, good. I just found it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, did you commission that picture?
Yeah, this is the story behind the picture. David Alexander and I. It hasn't got the original sleeve, right?
Yeah.
We went scouting.
Yeah.
Because Irving Azoff, the band's manager, called me in and said, "Listen to this," and the band were there. The whole band were there. I just, as soon as I heard the title track, I just knew this was going to be a monster hit, but the band already were monster hit band. So anyway, so David Alexander and I went scouting. I think we found 3 hotels that might do the job, but one of them was in the good old California sunset, and it just was magic, So in those days, you didn't. If you presented your work to the band, you would make huge dye transfers. It's a beautiful, beautiful print. So obviously, when the band walks in, they're going to go, that was, part of my way of presenting. All sorts of ways I do that. If I was going to present an album cover, I make a sort of 6-foot square one, So
Right.
can't get away from it. So Henley looked at it and said, "Okay, that's it," And from that point on, we went out. I think we went out and reshot it. This time on a proper cherry picker and everything else. And that was a very, very carefully crafted album, actually. The back, the sides, the inner sleeves, and it told its little story. And it's just a Beverly Hills hotel down the street from here. So yeah. And
So
you got one. Here we go.
What would be the budget for a thing like that back in, this is whenever, late 70s? How much were
you? Ridiculously big, large. Because in those days, when that album was probably going to make, $6 million in, so to spend, like, as we did, 40 grand, probably meant, I got a sign saying your internet connection is unstable. It's gone away. So I think that was a 40 grand budget.
Right.
I mean, dollars, not in pounds, but
that sounds colossal,
the work that went into it, Yeah, it does. I probably walked away with a couple of grand for myself. That's how much we spent in getting it right. Because the dye transfer prints, the retouching, the Hotel California sign, which is hand drawn. It was my lettering. But then we had to airbrush it, make it look like it's real and match the grain structure. So, yeah,
it was all craft skills in those days, wasn't it? It was pre-digital.
No computers, you see. So it's all cut and paste and stick and rephotograph. Airbrush and rephotograph.
Letter set, spray mount.
Spray mount. I still got that in my lungs.
I know. We have too from magazines.
Yeah, we have, but we weren't even designers.
I know.
Oh, you were just smoking.
Yeah.
No, it was a smell of magazine officers. It was, you went home every night with bits of design stuck to the soles of your shoes.
Transparencies attached to your trousers.
I still got the scars on my thumb from the scalpel blades from cutting fish.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So the spray mount was great, actually, because if you set fire to it, you could actually sort of use it and sort of. It was napalm. Do you know that?
We missed out on that.
So you did quite a few Asylum things. I think you did this, Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah, that's the first one I did for Linda. Yeah. So that
you did a lot of hers, didn't you?
I've done about 22, 23.
Oh, right.
Good God, amazing.
Yeah, we're great pals. I love it. Yeah, she's funny. Nice girl. So, yeah.
And tell us a bit more about how you, you say that when you showed things to artists, you gave them huge, great prints. People can't help.
Yeah.
Well, go on. People can't help being impressed. What were your techniques for getting things approved by artists?
Well, the first thing, the first trick is to get to know the artist, sit down with the artist, listen to the music. If you can get into the studio, we'll come out with a tape or something. So they have to trust you, so you can sit down and and so the brief, generally speaking, with Linda it was kind of easy because for Simple Dreams, which got the Grammy because it was so well crafted to do that. But by the time we got round to that, we'd done Hasten Down the Wind, and she looked great, you know. And you just get into this position with them where they know then you're not going to let them down. Mm-hmm. So you can present an idea to them and say, well, we can go in this direction or we can go in that direction. You know, what do you feel like? And someone like Linda may say, well, this one's got kind of heavy rock and roll to this one. I don't think my sort of pretty image, my soft image is going to work for this music. And that may be the brief. Hence Mad Love, which I'm going to see if I can find here in a minute.
Yeah, go on, show us.
Go on, yeah.
Which is...
I've got that one.
Yeah, I think it might be in the other paragraph. Yeah, so the trick with that one was that, you know, to kind of make it look kind of tough, but gorgeous at the same time. And here we go, and it still is. And this is Linda.
Oh, all right. That's okay. That's the kind of.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually one of my favorites because it's so simple. It looks, in fact, it was well rehearsed. And she's in a phone booth downtown, and I gave her a roll of quarters. You know, we've got the makeup going, so she looked really cool. You know, decided to shoot in black and white to give it that noir feeling. And we went. Hang on, yeah, this one. This is cool. And gave her a roll of quarters, which she fed into the coin box, and she called her boyfriend, who was the governor of California, Jerry Brown.
Of course. That's right. She
on the phone, Jerry, yeah. And that was totally the opposite. And this is why I like to put them together. Exactly the opposite of doing something like this.
Right.
Which is so carefully crafted. You know, the mirrors, which actually, this is the gatefold, hang on. You know, give you the fact that it wraps around. And the cameras are not in the mirrors, and she's in the mirrors, but we're not. I'm standing up holding Dubertine. There's two assistants sort of doing things. So that was carefully rehearsed, and that was shot in the ladies' room at the Pantages Theatre, which was full of these very Art Deco mirrors. So this took probably 3 or 4 days to set up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was carefully planned. But most of our work is actually carefully, you know, we draw out the lighting rigs. Well, you spoke to, you know, Mankiewicz, you know, come on, you know, who's a dear friend. And so you know all the stuff that goes on in the background. You know?
Yeah. So how did you find the kind of transition to CD? Did that disappoint you?
Yes, of course. You know, all of a sudden your art gallery in the record stores has disappeared, you know.
But also you presumably can't commission the same kind of images, can you? Because they have to work, they have to have impact when they're only that big.
Yeah, you've got to be more disciplined, actually. So you've got to get a message across immediately. It's even worse now when you're just downloading a little, you know, 2-inch square at 72 DPI.
Yeah.
So you've got to be even more disciplined. Whereas before we could experiment. And the whole point of having a 12-inch square or a 24, if you open it, is you've got this massive sort of place to play with. And we did, as you can tell, because not only do you have the gatefold, but you have the sleeve that comes out, and all these easy panels that you can sort of tell a story with. Because it was very important, I thought, that you'd listen to the music and you'd read the lyrics or the liner notes.
Yeah. And
it would all come together as an experience, you know, and you could clean your grass and the seeds would roll down the gutter of your, you know, the whole work.
How do you
look?
How do you look at album covers that you've designed? I mean, lots of things that we've been looking at were huge hits, and you look at Who's Next, you think that's an iconic record cover, partly because it was a really successful record, and therefore it hangs around forever. How do you must have designed a lot of things that you were really proud of that weren't big hit records. How do you feel about them?
Well, you know,
they never get the credit, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, sometimes, we've been, you know, because we've done a lot of experimentation, you know, like printing on the wrong side of the board, so it's all soft. And there's been a lot of things that they've never seen the light. Well, they've seen the light of day, but never big sellers. So you just have to put up with it, you know. But it's great talking about the icons, of course, you know. I mean, not that you realize at the time that you're building one. You know, I had no clue that Abbey Road was going to be anything more than the Beatles walking across the street, you know. And dear Ian McMillan had no clue either. It was just, you know, it's Wednesday and we need artwork out by Friday, you know. So sometimes things take off. And sometimes like Hotel California luckily it was it's going to be a big seller anyway because the Eagles were huge, which is another reason why I did not put the name of the band on the cover, because everyone was waiting for Hotel California to come out. And they were as big as the Beatles at the time, as whoever would have been. In fact, as backstage, we always called them the Beagles. It was that sort of.
Have you got any other examples of less well known? Oh, Dave, you got some more there? Come on.
No, I'm just going to ask. I want to ask about Abbey Road because let me get it out again because I'm right in saying that there are only 7 pictures.
6 wasn't it?
Well, 6. I said that they were there. I remember 8, but I'm told there were 12. But I remember sort of getting them on the light box, with Ian. Actually, we were on our knees in the light box, in the back of Apple Records, going over them, kind of worrying about, is it going to be good enough for an album cover? And
but then again, only one actually really worked. We've seen that lots of them are on the internet now, and you look at them and you think they're completely hopeless because they're out of step or one of them.
That's down to Ian and I, sort of, because I think we just showed Lenny, and I don't think who else was then. George was looking over our shoulders at the time, and he just sort of gave up.
Were you there for the shoot then? Were you art directing the shoot?
No, I was not there for the shoot. That was the whole point. I was waiting actually for the film to arrive on a courier to get it to the lab.
Yeah.
And in HQ, as we called it. And because I was still at the same time I was working on other projects. I think Billy Preston's album was going. At Apple at the time was chaos. It was fun chaos, I must admit. It was high powered. I don't know. We just had such a great time working very, very hard to get stuff out on time, which we never blew a deadline, believe me. But yeah, so that was the whole point with that. We were looking at this with the loop, and does it matter that Paul's out of step? We had no idea about the license plate in the background, 28 if.
No.
Well, all that just developed after the event, didn't it?
Yeah.
That car sold at auction recently, I think, didn't it, for some vast amount of money?
Well, I think there's 3 of them now. So, because I know there's one in Stuttgart, had one in the museum somewhere. Stuttgart. But the point was that at this point, Derek Taylor stepped in, the mighty Derek Taylor, and said, well, the trick here is not to confirm or deny Paul's death. So our instructions were to say, if anyone asked us, is it really Paul, was to say, well, it looks like him. And leave it at that,
Keep the whole thing boiling.
we did, which he did remarkably well, particularly in the States. So that album cover actually opened the doors for me to come to America, because you walk in with that,
Yeah, it's a calling card, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Beatles were bigger. It's so huge in the States, bigger than they were in Britain, because Britain had the Stones. There was a whole mass of sort of and a lot of Mersey Beach stuff going on. Excuse me while I do that. So yeah, it was. That's how it all started and how it all finished, because we had to get that album cover to Garrett Lofthouse was the printers.
Garrett Lofthouse.
Yeah. Well, actually, George had renamed them Garage and Shithouse, which I think was.
How soon before the picture was taken did they decide to do that? Did they just say, well, we've got to take a photograph tomorrow? It was that kind of thing.
Yeah. I thought it was a publicity stunt all along, and then suddenly it turned into this. Oh shit, we got to get this. Because I was working at the time. I was working on Let It Be, which in those days was called Get Back. So Abbey Road was slotted into that. The Get Back album cover was finished, ready to go, until we had to put it one side, and then that's when the title was changed to Let It Be. And that's another story, because
was that your idea to have each of the 4 of them the same size? They each get exactly the same amount of importance.
Yeah, it was my answer to the White Album. This was going to be the Black Album. It was going to be their swan song.
Yeah.
Not realizing that contractually they had to make another album, and Abbey Road was it. And it was so damn good. God. And I think Phil Spector was still messing with Let It Be, or still Get Back at that time. And Get Back was supposed to be getting back to their roots. And I thought, well, it's fitting to have a Black Album, and for portraits. It was deliberately sort of funereal. That was the whole point. You know?
Yeah.
Had a black inner sleeve. I don't know whether it still has one. Yeah, but that was just shoved aside, and all hands on deck to get Abbey Road going.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, I managed to make the sky a little bluer. Airbrush in those days, no computers. I could have just dialed it in Photoshop. And
so you're talking about this. You made the sky a bit bluer.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's interesting.
It was a typical sort of, you know, English summer. Well, she wasn't.
Yeah, not quite as blue as that.
Yes,
No.
right. Exactly. So we had to enhance that a little bit. Same as I did for, you know, Who's Next? But this time, use a toothbrush.
That's fantastic. So with Let It Be, when it first came out in the UK, it was with a booklet, wasn't it? It was a big, thick kind of presentation set. You haven't still got that, have you?
You have one. Did we have it? I don't think I brought it. Yeah, it came in a box.
It came in a box with a big, fat old kind of photo book, didn't it?
Yeah, in the book, which I got a few here. The trouble with the book is it's perfect bound, which means it falls to pieces. Right?
It falls to pieces. That is absolutely correct. Mine fell to pieces in about 1971. Yeah,
as happened with Magical Mystery Tour, but that makes them more valuable because most of them fall apart, don't they? If you've got one that hasn't fallen apart, it's very, very rare.
The box fell apart too. Another wedding album, which we'll get to, which is still sturdy. So the other day I went as a friend of mine who runs a record store down here, so I'm sort of record store, and he asked him to find me a complete box of Let It Be. Which he did.
Oh, really?
Well, it's in pieces. It was there with the book. I got the books. There was the box, and there was, you know. So I actually got it all put together for like $1,500 or something, you know. And I went online and found they're up for sale for $7,000, you know, complete, if they're not crushed.
Yeah.
So I was very comfortable. But anyway,
what others have you got there in your pile?
What do you want?
The Eagles?
You want to see? Alex really wants me to talk about.
All right, the long run.
Okay.
Which has got a little story because Henley and I sort of fell out over this because I've got a matte cover. I don't know if you can see that, and a very glossy inside.
All right.
And Don Henley said, no. I want it the other way around. And I said, well, it's a bit late, son. It's on press, you know. And we sort of, he was kind of pissed off with me for that because, you know, I'd broken the trust, I guess. Anyway, it was move on 45 years or 40 years later, I was at the Glenfriars Memorial and I bumped into Henley again. And of course, we suddenly thought, oh, this is fucking silly.
Well, you hadn't spoken to each other all those years.
And it was over this thing, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, there's a few million of those out. So anyway, we decided that was a very silly thing for us both to do, so we made up. So that was cool.
What's your personal favourites? Is it possible to choose favourites of the ones that you've done?
Well, I can get close. I'm really fond of this one.
This is Linda Ronstadt, right?
Yeah, actually, this is not the gatefold version, but this is the single version. But it's got metallic red ink on it. I don't know if it's gleaming or not. But
all right, okay.
So Linda and I we had such fun pushing the envelope with printers and things. Printers used to hate me with my pop-ups and pop-outs and things.
Yes.
My favourites is difficult, you know. I mean, I like the REO Speedwagon. Are you going to show these things later, or I just? There's the box.
Wave them.
There's the box.
Wave them at the wedding album.
Yeah, there it is. Because it's got. Oh God.
How involved were John and Yoko in that design?
Well, see, that's the thing. That's why I want the plastic bag for that. Well, no, not really, because they were off, you know, in getting. I got the wedding. Mine credit is on the actual wedding certificate. I don't know if you read it.
Oh, really?
Well, John sort of let me run after a while, you know. Yoko was like always very, very unwell. I mean, I first met them at Hammersmith Hospital. I don't know if you know that story. Because working for Art and Artists, and you know, I'm knocking this thing about. And we were, you know, I was fielding the phones and I'm talking to, you know, de Kooning and the greatest designers and photographers in the world and artists who wanted to get in the magazine. And one evening I got a phone call from Lennon, but I didn't realize if it was real or not, because it was like, you know, this is Mr. Lennon, can I speak to Mr. Kosh? And I'm not going to do my bad Liverpudlian accent, but I thought it was my mates stood putting me on. And he said, can he meet me at the Hammersmith Hospital? And I thought, this is weird. Then it dawned on me when I got there and asked for Mr. Winston. And the door opened and there was John. You know, geez. And that's when we hit it off, you know, and he made a cup of tea, you know, he sort of sat down and we sketched out what we're going to do. I showed him what I do for War Is Over. And from that point on, I did his diary, I did his calendars, or their calendars, I should say. And yeah, it just, you know, because of my connection with the design and work I did for art and artists, and, you know, he just, I've been doing his diary was like, I don't know if you've seen a John Lennon diary.
I don't think
No, I haven't.
Oh, I don't know whether I got one. I don't. Oh, okay. Yeah, he decided that he was going to write an entry for every day of 1969. This is so we're in, I guess, last month of '68. So to do that, I had to explain to him that if he's going to write in every page and we're going to print it, it has to be done on a huge sheet of paper, which is chopped up and folded until like a book is printed. So John sat down and I don't know if well, the story was that every day it had the same entry: got up, went to work, came home, watched telly, went to bed.
That's not what you want from John Lennon's diary, though, is it, really?
Yes.
To be honest.
But this was only 6 days of the week. The 7th day, or even if it was a Saturday, okay, was got up, fucked the wife, went back to bed. And by the time he got to September, he was getting hand cramp, you know, and we're both kneeling on the floor writing this thing. And he turned around to me and said, whose fucking idea was this? Said, John, it was yours. So anyway, it got bound and put together. So if you look at the diary, you can see his handwriting is getting worse and worse and worse because we did it in chronological order, if you like, you know. Anyway, it became an art piece, you know, which went in the Aspen box, which is another story of artifacts by John and Yoko.
So do you must think you're very fortunate as a designer to suddenly come of age at the time that all these people were suddenly being allowed to do things that nobody had ever been allowed to do before, and you were helping them to realize them.
I was in the right place at the right time, I must confess. I mean, yeah. So, you know, I don't consider myself at the time. I don't think I was very good at my job, to be honest. I was like too young and naive. But just walking into that sort of era, the art scene and the music scene in London and Liverpool, in Britain, was burgeoning. You know, every sort of every school had its band. You know, the Royal College had Hypnosis, which sprung Hypnosis, had LaFloyd, you know. Yeah. I went to Hornsey Art College and thought we had Ray and Dave Davis there, and that's the Kinks. I mean, then you go up to, well, where did the Animals come from?
Newcastle.
In Newcastle, right? They were all at art school, and ELO came out of Birmingham Art School. You know, it was just like this whole thing there was a big merger between design and music, and somehow or other most of the record company labels were just like sticking pictures on album covers and getting them out, you know.
And also 5 years before that, groups were barely involved in the
yeah, well, actually the floodgates opened, actually,
yeah, so your timing was perfect, you know.
Well, Sgt. Pepper just opened all the floodgates, and then all of a sudden the bands got immense power, you know, but they didn't know how to do it. And one of my big sort of skill, I guess, was knowing how to deal with printers. So when I walked into Apple and they were sort of trying to get away from EMI, who had their own art departments and their own methods of dealing with the medium, I was the only one at Apple who knew how to sort of pick up a phone and talk
to a printer.
Print. Yeah. So all of a sudden I found myself in this position, like there's all these album covers which we're doing and the single sleeves and the promotion and bubbles, and I knew how to say to the printers, no, you know, you've got to this one, to put it on that press, and you know, sorry, your deadlines are wrong, and we're never going to get this out on time if you don't do this, you know.
So you were doing production as much as design.
Yeah, and I'd learned that from my being a slave at British Printing Corporation, you know. So that's what put me in a very strong position, because now I'm not only have I got the clout of the Fab Four behind me, I'd also got, you know, cred to deal with print.
Yeah.
And that sort of smoothed the path. So there were no huge mistakes, you know, because a lot of designers who were more amateur than I would submit things which are impossible to print.
Yeah.
Where I would manage to say, no, we can do this, but there's no way can we make a bat fly out of this thing, you know, which is one concept.
Are there any particular sleeves by people other than yourself that you think are that are reasonably well known that you thought were particularly fantastic?
Oh, never mind the bollocks. Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
Fantastic. Sex Pistols. I mean, that's so anti-design, so anti.
Yeah, it's a great sleeve.
You know, and if I
great
think
colours.
it was in Dayglow, silkscreen Dayglow, yellow and pink. It was horrific, you know, with the bad typography. I just think that was a stunning. I consider that way up there in the top 10. Really.
Right.
You know, then I think the next one, jumping ahead a few decades, is Bowie's Dark Star.
Oh, really?
And with the tactile, the black on black. We've all messed around with black on black, you know,
yeah,
which is not a good marketing tool if you think about it.
No.
But nonetheless, there've been a few fabulous pieces of work, you know, and you needn't just go through, you know, I mean, come on, the stuff that Hypnosis were turning out, and a lot of stuff over here. I mean, I'm actually composing a list of my top 10 right now for the Clio Awards. And, you know, it's difficult for me actually, because there's so much great stuff. And I'm not allowed to use my own stuff. So it's
right.
Yeah.
But you still got lots of stuff. You've hung on to stuff. You're a collector, are you?
Yeah, well, I love vinyl. I mean, I love to play vinyl. So I've got in the next room here, I've got a great setup, you know, which is, you know, I got the Thorns turntable from 1976, and I got tube amplifiers, and I got massive speakers.
Oh, lovely!
And I can just blow CDs out the water, you know.
Right. So what we traditionally do with these chats is we ask people to name the greatest record ever made. Are you in a position to do that? You can choose off the top of your head, or you may have prepared something.
No, one that I designed, or one of the greatest record ever made.
Just a record.
Well, you know, I honestly, I have to say Abbey Road is...
Go on. That's
fair enough.
Fair enough.
You know, because come on, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't blow my own trumpet here.
No, it's fair. It's fair.
I'm going to blow my own trumpet in a minute with this. Ta-da.
All right. No, that was...
that's good. Yes.
That was a complex piece of work.
That was inside that. Because apart from the fact I designed the logo...
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, shit. Are you going to censor this, or am I allowed to say things like shit?
No, of course, that's fine.
Sure.
Hang on.
So is that the same logo as this?
Yeah. Yeah. That's how this all started. Because this is an homage to my dad, because he used to run and repair and service Wurlitzer jukeboxes. So this is half. That is the top of a Wurlitzer 1015 1949 jukebox.
Right, of course.
And the logo in the middle is like a sort of rip-off of General Electric's logo. General Electric Corp, GEC logo. So I thought electric, light, orchestra, music, and I put it over the city. And I just flown in over the pole to work on this, and the Aurora Borealis was hanging in the sky. The pilot said, "Look out your window," and I'd never seen the Aurora Borealis before. And it was like Disney had airbrushed the sky, you know, put little twinkling stars in it. So I incorporated that, but the logo itself went marching on, and then turned into the spaceship out of the blue.
Of course, yeah.
That's right. They made an actual spaceship, didn't they?
Well, actually, what happened was I was playing
part of the stage act.
I was playing frisbee with my son. Okay, I was like 7 or something, and I stuck an ELO logo sticker on the frisbee, just because I had a ton of stickers, you know, and threw it through the air. And as it sailed across the blue sky, I thought, shit, that's it. That's the album cover for Out of the Blue. And that's how that evolved. And they're still using it in some form or another. But anyway, that's the story behind Out of the Blue and how that sort of got going. But the album itself originally came with a sort of cardboard put together conning tower that you put together so your saucer can sit on top.
You had to construct it, didn't you? Yeah, I remember this.
Pop it out and sort of together. And there was also a poster with a band in it. In those days we used to stuff things and everything we could stuff in. So that was like, God, do you imagine the amount of work that was to get it done in time? I mean, it wasn't as bad as the wedding album with all the pieces of cake and the photographs and the press cuttings and all that stuff, because there's always a deadline, there always is.
Yeah.
And it's always mostly the artist sort of they don't realize that, trucks have to roll on the 18th of October, otherwise there's no Christmas, So
well, particularly in those days, people put out so many records in those days, didn't they? They put out 2 a year often.
Yeah, exactly. And then they hit holidays as well, where they do, particularly in the States. I mean, there's schools out for summers. You had to deal with all the summer releases.
Yeah.
And then Christmas, as I say, normally art directors and designers have had Christmas. We're finished by September. It's all over. No more red and green, please. So that's over. So the big dates are the biggest date I think is Christmas, and it's huge. But sometimes I used to walk into Tower Records, which is a big record store in LA, and I think I had 10 album covers in the top 100. And they put them all out for me around the store, which I thought was, I made sure I had a photo op, and I thought, my God, that was a big thrill. I mean, I think the biggest thrill of all is watching or going on press, because that's the job of the designer. Your job is not finished. You may have to fly to Amsterdam or Chicago or wherever else to make sure that the albums that are coming off the press,
that all the colors are right and everything.
Colors are right.
Yeah. We're magazine people, so we know what you mean.
Yeah, right. So you go in with a sort of couple of bottles of Jack Daniels and a few 6-packs for the pressmen, for after they got, so everyone's in a jolly mood. But when you see like 500,000 covers flying off that machine with your name on and that smell, it's
really,
it's as good as sex.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Gosh, it's been a delight to talk to you, and to be reminded of the days of whirring presses in the middle of the night.
Well, the
smell of printer's ink and the feeling of a job well done.
Yeah, it wasn't the ink so much as the set-off powder. That was the smell. That was you take home with it. Right?
Yeah. That's lovely. Thanks so much for talking to us.
For your time.
Brilliant.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a View.